certain dots, like when I see that they put every black man in the movies in a dress at some point in their career, I'll be connecting them down like, why all these brothers gotta wear a dress?
On this episode, we're talking toxic masculinity. So pull up to the table.
Hello, everyone! Welcome to another episode of the Situationship Circle. I am here today with a lovely group of people. Let's start with...
I am Winston.
Alan.
Shanice.
Daryl.
Afeni.
And I am Norman Devine, your moderator. Guys, I am super excited today to talk about this topic. It's been something that I have been like harboring on because I just love this topic because it has so many different avenues. Y'all ready?
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it.
Right. So, we know that in 2019, everybody kind of moves differently. If some would venture to say that, you know, they move in more masculine and or feminine energy, right? So let's talk about masculinity. What defines masculinity? Daryl.
Alright. Well, I think masculinity is just defined by the individual themselves.
Okay.
The reason I say that is because it's just like, it's a spectrum. You know, you can't say that the only thing that makes someone, if we're talking scientifically, masculine would be, you know, and not even this, you know, just their sexual organs. If we're talking about science. But like, you can be masculine or feminine. We all have masculine and feminine energy. I think it's a spectrum. So for me, masculinity is just the way that you carry yourself, what you project to the world. If you're confident in it, whatever it is, whether someone thinks it's, you know, out of the norm or normal per society standards, whatever that may be, as long as you're confident in it and you stand proud in that, I think that's all that you need.
Okay. So I know you said to be masculine is to be confident. So is there to be feminine? Is that there's not a feminine confidence with that?
No, I don't think so. I think that femininity is definitely confidence as well. I think when you're talking about in terms of masculinity, a masculine person, someone who's secure in their masculinity is not afraid of their feminine side. Okay. They're not afraid to express their femininity either.
So I'm coming. I promise. I'm coming. So Ms. Allen, let's talk about masculinity.
Okay.
Let's define it. What does that look like?
Well, from a culture standpoint, I think it's masculinity has to be earned. I think it's your ability to provide. I think it's your ability to lead and things like that. I think now in the 21st century, we're starting to challenge it because we think that it's toxic or it harms women, harms little boys.
Disagree.
So that's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear. So I'm curious to know like what women especially what their definition of masculinity is.
Okay. So since you said that, Ms. Devine.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Woo!
I first just want to challenge something that was said. You can't say that masculinity is what you make it when you just say everybody has masculine or feminine energy. So there's something that's defining masculinity in an energy and femininity in an energy. So that's, to me, is what your question is. What is society defining as what masculine energy is and what feminine energy is? From my understanding, feminine energy is much lighter. It's much calmer. It's much more peaceful. It's more let things come to you. That is feminine energy. It is not boastful and strong and large, and that's not feminine energy. Masculine energy is way more in your face. It's way more take charge. It's way more, you know, create and go get. That's the hunter kind of masculine energy. Now, yes, women and men have both. And women can have more masculine energy than their feminine energy, as well as men can have more feminine energy portraying than their masculine energy. But there is definitely a difference between what masculinity is and what femininity is.
Okay. Okay, so you're not gonna like this.
Speak on it.
I believe both of them are really a construct for what's either more aggressive or submissive. Like, we really just kind of associate femininity with somebody who generally takes like the more healing or the more backseat approach, and so we kind of give that over into femininity, and then that's when a whole bunch of stereotypes with what this is what feminine does and this is what masculine does and all that comes into play. I feel like it's really all just a word association at the end of the day. Like whatever you whatever you take to is what you are. Because I mean, there's plenty classically feminine males who are very boastful and prideful. So where exactly do you sit that person? I mean, is it masculinity?
Combination of the two, clearly.
Exactly. So I mean, if it's a combination of the two and everybody has both, then aren't they both not made up words?
I mean, yeah, if you're trying to define what the English language is telling you these words are, he asked what masculine was. We weren't asking, you know, why we got to put a name on it. It's a name on it.
See, I'm not asking
put a
why
name
we got
on
to put a name on it.
But that's what we're addressing.
But I know so many
I don't
men.
believe that any of it's real.
I know so many men who have an ability to, and only speaking for myself, I am learning at my age of 38 that protectiveness in a man is something that I look for. I consider myself a feminist, definitely. But I do also want a man who can protect me and give me that feeling of protection.
Amen.
So I think for me it's kind of like masculine, and I have a tendency to be more masculine, loud, pushy, all of that, abrasive. And so some of the best men in my life are gentle and quiet and kind and listen, but can stomp that foot down in a way that doesn't diminish me as a woman, as strong as I am. And to me, I think it is a balance of both. I mean, I think what both of you are saying is true. A lot of what we understand it to be just isn't accurate, because there are a lot of men who are homosexual and maybe very feminine, but still have a certain masculine energy about them. That it just is.
So since you're there, I need to tap right in on that place where you are.
Sure.
So do we feel like the state of masculinity is being attacked since it is 2019?
Well, let's address the attack first of all. The state of masculinity has always been attacked if you're an African American brother. If that's in my opinion, I've been an African American brother my whole life, so I can't speak for the other brothers. But as an African American brother, the state of masculinity has always been attacked, because if we were to band together and link arms, we would flip this thing overnight. And that is my belief of what is now happening, where you look on TV and you see the beautiful queen standing next to a very handsome, nice, you know, cool looking Caucasian guy. And I say that it's being attacked because then everybody you see on TV is typically what? Going to jail for something bad. You know what I mean? Where are most of us? It's most of our sisters that don't have nobody.
Okay, so but when we talk about like the state of masculinity, like with it being attacked, like with Hollywood's portrayal of what men are out here doing. So like we have like, oh wait, y'all get some stuff on me, calm down. So we got we got like a lot of people who are out here doing different things, i.e. like the guy who went to the Oscars, Billy Porter, and he wore the gown, or people who like Tyler Perry who dress up as women on TV. Are we not perpetrating to our children or people who are watching these shows that it's okay? Like, what does that look like?
We have to think about if masculinity has like a real kind of centered thing in the earth. Like, is masculinity a thing? Like, so when we think of masculinity, think of something that is geared towards men, or like, is it something that we've defined over time? Because like, if we're thinking of something that we've defined and we've accepted, then no, it has no basis. But like, there are some things that are just natural to men and women.
Thank you.
For example, women have a menstrual
Absolutely.
cycle. That is something that is
very feminine,
geared towards women.
Yes.
I'm not even going to say that it's feminine. I'm just going to say that that's geared towards women. It's something that
So how
happens
is
to
that
women.
not? How can I ask a question? How can you? Because I blurted that out, so I want to understand. How can you not say that's feminine when I only know a woman to be able to perform that?
Well, men and women can have both feminine and masculine characteristics.
Right.
So we have to kind of like make this idea in our minds of like, okay, masculinity, femininity is something that we have created as people.
It is.
So it's gonna have like different definitions based on your different mindset, right?
Right.
But me being a woman,
Agreed.
there are some things that I have that are just indigenous to me as a woman, you know.
If I can
Okay, so I wanna-
sorry.
Yeah, so I just want to get back to our question. So I'm going to say that masculinity really is just like either, whatever way you put it, masculinity or femininity, it's just a gendered behavior based on like what your gender is, and gender is a social construct. So it is a made up concept of what we have attached to. No, because that's real. Anyway, I'm gonna keep going. So I said that to set the precedent of your question about is there an attack on masculinity? There isn't an attack on masculinity.
Yo, cut that out. How was there not? No, I threw the flag. How is there not an attack on masculinity when you have men wearing dresses?
Wait a minute. Hold up, calm down. But he has the flag, so he gets 60 seconds.
Oh, I got the flag. It's not a but. That's the rule. How is there not an attack? This is a visual world, ladies and gentlemen. We are in a visual place. That's why everything now is 3D, 4K, and everything else, and it comes to you instantaneously. How is there not an attack on masculinity when you have men in the Oscars wearing a dress?
Hold on, Daryl.
How do you view that as an attack, though? Because
it's black men. But I'm answering this question. It's black men.
Okay.
Black men.
So if we're taking that, right? So because let's take your example.
Yeah.
If you're talking about a black man wearing a dress, right? And that's you view that as an attack on masculinity.
Yes.
How?
Okay, so when you're saying that, this is what I'm hearing. If you're saying that for that particular example, a man wearing a dress is an attack on masculinity, is that making you feel less of a man because you're seeing another man do something that you're not comfortable with? Or is it because you feel that because now we are letting other people express themselves, we're showing different ways in which masculinity to people can be performed and shown, that now we're corrupting like the generations coming up?
That's a great question, and I'm glad you actually asked that question, because that's something I look in the mirror and I want to understand. I went to school for cosmetology, so I dealt with it naturally, all right? Okay. And as a straight man, I want to understand that is still me. I'm not wearing a dress. Now my son, when my son sees that, how do I explain that?
That's why I wanted to kind of like get that in our
No, I have long hair.
Okay, so
Who gets to decide?
wait. No. Okay, so she means.
Like, can we just simmer down? Like, hey, I'll get to a simmer.
Why?
Woo. All right.
Y'all think y'all blood pressure's getting too high. Y'all need to simmer. Bring it back. But
No, we
anyway,
want clarity.
I think with there is not a war on masculinity. The thing is, masculinity is being challenged in the way that it is traditionally portrayed. So that things that are naturally portrayed for men, like tussling or being manipulative or whatever, those things.
What are you talking about?
And then we're gonna go to Kyra, and then we're gonna go to mine. So Dave's gonna go first. We need to clean up. I just like.
So what kind of blows my mind in this whole situation is that we actually attribute fucking masculinity over a piece of fucking fabric that somebody's wearing on their fucking body. So how are we talking about an attack on masculinity? Like, you got to question what you're associating with what's masculine and what's feminine. What's blowing my mind is how we like sit here and call it a fucking attack on masculine. And yeah, there's things considered classically masculine. So therefore, yeah, if you want to call it an attack in the sense that somebody might be purposely putting it in your face because they know how you're going to interpret it and have this goddamn conversation, then yes, it's an attack. That's like fucking the other day, Obama said something along the lines of not every rapper has to have asses in his video to validate his masculinity, and a whole bunch of what I call simp niggas felt called some type of way because now it's just like, oh, maybe the video just needs more asses. Maybe we just need, so like, because we're associating a guy being surrounded by a whole bunch of sets in women to be masculine.
More manly, more male.
So like we really need to call into what is a masculine construct before we talk about what an attack is.
But that's
and to dip into what you were saying, my aspect, Billy Porter wore a beautiful gown. But when I was in high school for prom, I got a custom made royal blue gown that I wore. The definition of society's masculinity is being prideful, being courageous, being able to do something and stand in it as a man. When I wore my prom gown as a man, I wore it. I got it made. It was my idea. That to me is prideful. Courageous as I was, I walked into the Hilton Hotel on University and I strutted in that gown as a man.
Putting on that dress and putting on them pumps made me feel the most powerful and the most masculine that I've ever felt.
From the classical perspective this brother talked about, as a majority society, if I was to let my son walk into an elementary school in the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th grade in a dress, as masculine as he is with a penis, that's not how he gonna get it. They're gonna put him out
from society.
And I feel because I'm okay with I have homosexual friends. That's not the question. It's the bigger and that's why I'm being the opposite.
But because we're having this discussion in the manner in which y'all are having it, does that not mean that it's being challenged?
It's not.
The concept of masculinity is being challenged because there are people that have views that are stretching the view of masculinity.
He's being challenged like a mug.
Maybe we're
So let's scale it back for one. Let's scale it back for 1 second. Let's scale it back for 1 second. So we never said how it was being challenged in a negative or positive way.
Those are two different words. Challenge and attack are two different words.
Let's scale it back because we getting a real high. We getting real high.
Break it down.
We can't have breakthroughs.
So what I feel like he said is two different words.
Right.
The challenge, it is being challenged, and I feel as a parent it's being attacked. Because when I grew up, we didn't see that. When I grew up, it wasn't cool. The young man that was
cool?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't publicly talked about. My stepdaddy and his brother said it wasn't
cool.
So that's what you bred up under. That's what you bred up under. I get that everybody gets their right. Now it's being attacked. Hold on.
Doesn't make it an attack.
Exactly.
It's like white
It
people
makes it
ain't being attacked when black people walk into a room, but they assume
But
they're
it's
being
an
attacked.
attack. Hold on, let me address why I feel like it's being attacked. Because we're seeing it where we never saw it before, and that is the norm of what we're accustomed to.
So something is being challenged and pushed. That's not attacked.
So if he's feeling attacked right now because y'all can't accept what his view of masculinity is, then
you know what I mean? Like, that's not the thing.
Let's talk that for 1 second.
Us attacking him is not the same as him attacking us attacking masculinity.
Here's the thing, though. I think the difference between attack and challenge is semantics, right? So you can't tell somebody they're not being attacked.
Thank you.
Right? So you might challenge somebody, but the brain processes it the same way as an attack.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think the problem is we're in a very transitionary period because the things that classic masculinity deemed productive aren't necessary anymore. So those challenges now are like the I guess the old school who like classic masculinity are like they're ruining men. Versus the new school, men don't need to be warriors anymore. Men don't need to be aggressors anymore. Women can do it too. And it's a very tough period because we're fighting the old while trying to reel in the new.
So what is traditional masculinity?
I think like the Spartans. Now we're saying that men should show emotion versus 500 years ago, a man showing emotion was counterproductive. Right? So, but we can't discount, we can't just throw it away and be like, oh, it's 2019, y'all need to just...
And where the attack come from is all the African American men been in jail. So y'all, society is doing this, and everybody has their right and their belief. But our fathers and grandfathers weren't there. Where were they? They were locked up for this. They was fighting for rights. They was locked up for that. So you look at a culture, and I feel attacked in my culture. I'm telling you, I feel attacked because as a whole, all we could do is be hustlers and pimps and be outside the house of welfare. Welfare was created for the women to not, if you weren't married, that the man could not be in the house. So the man had to leave, but you needed the help. So I feel like it's been an attack from the very beginning for how it started. Because if all the men were in the house, if all the men were in the house, sensitive or not, because I'm a sensitive ass brother, straight up. I cry, I hug, and I need a lot of kisses and love in my household. But if all the men were there teaching the balance, then I don't believe it would happen in the way that it's happening now. But these brothers have a right, and they are right. They still men. They will go to war. We would fight for what's right and wrong. They are tough. They are strong. But as in my perspective, it is being attacked.
Okay, so...
Specifically speaking for the black community, I feel like we haven't really got to the point where we have defined what black masculinity for a man looks like. It's been portrayed in a negative point of view to where if you see a black masculine man, you automatically exude like a thug or something like that. So
That's very true. That's very true.
Other, other people coming about like in suits like Obama and stuff like that. Like we're starting to transition the mindset of it. But it's always been like that. White masculinity is different. Like you always see like a white prominent man in a suit. So I just think it's all about like redefining what it is for us in a positive light.
So do we feel like the way that society has portrayed masculinity, like do we feel like it's kind of toxic, like in the way that our children are academically and or like how they're raised and different things like that? Oh, but,
I think what's toxic about all of this is assuming that just because you're male or female, you fit into a certain box. And so just like when we talk about race, as black people, look in this room, we all have different backgrounds, experiences. We are not homogenous, and we try so hard to teach the rest of the world that we're not the same. Don't paint us with a broad brush. But we're kind of doing that with gender now, or masculinity now. And I think the truth of it is, I think there is room for both. To me, what's being changed is, Alan had mentioned how back in the day, masculinity was a certain way. To me, that view was limited. It was too limited. Now that we're offering this range, there's all these new things coming in, and I think for people who have a very traditional way of looking at it, they take that as an attack on their belief, because a lot of who they are comes from that belief, and now it's different. But there's still room for both, because it's not like men who wear dresses are saying that men who wear suits can't wear suits no more.
Right. Well, we have to think about like, okay, so you said there's a difference between attack and challenge, which you said it was semantics.
Yeah.
That's what you said. Because you can't tell a person when they're being attacked, right? But this is like a concept. This isn't a person. Like a concept that is outdated and that has like very obvious reasons why it should change. That is a challenge. It's not being attacked. What is his name? Billy Porter. Billy Porter. This man was doing what was natural to him. Do you know how much courage it took for him to step out and do that? But I'm speaking because I'm saying this is who he is. This is who this man is. And he's not attacking masculinity. He's just being who he is. Right. Like me wearing my hair natural, that was me letting my hair grow out of my head the way it is. He's just being just naturally who he is. He's not thinking about masculinity, femininity, or anything like that.
I feel like that's
and then when we consider black masculinity, I think of like being a feminist, right? And we talk about intersectionality, which was kind of created by a black woman. Intersectionality with like as far as black masculinity, that is completely different from masculinity on its own. Black men are being attacked all the time. So I agree with you 100%, because the evidence of that is completely different from just singularly
I mean, and I feel like that is so real because, I mean, dude look dope. Everybody saw that. You in fashion. I like swag. Dude was swagged out, but I feel like typically, even with the movies, look at all the black actors. Will Smith, 6 degrees separation before he popped. He had to get in the bed with the white man and do the homo act.
Black man.
I feel like they don't go through that. And so I feel like it is an attack from that perspective. But from the art, from the creativity, from him being him, we need that. If we don't have that.
So I got a second question. So is there an attack on femininity, or is there such thing as toxic femininity?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about that. What does that look like?
What's toxic femininity?
Can I say something quick? I just feel like we just accepted something that was really, really hard to just accept, because nobody knows that man's intention. So I don't feel like you can say what his intent was or was not to challenge anything. So I just feel like that can't even be on the table. Like
we don't know what went through his head.
Right. But his creativity was what was appreciated. He went on a red carpet and slayed it because of what he wanted to wear, regardless of what the social construct was. Apparently,
his album picture, like he was. He felt like he was the person.
I think an interesting thing to think about is sometimes we discount people who we consider backwards in their mentality, right? But like, for example, with my parents who are African, Nigerian, born and raised, grew up there forever, them seeing a black man on TV with a dress on, to them, the way they're processing it is that's going to be the new norm. Now my son is going to wear a dress. Now my son is starting to hold up. My son is now going to like men. Now my son isn't going to procreate, and my lineage stops.
Okay.
So but that's how they view it, and that's why they process it as an attack.
And that's outside
because for Africans, it's less about me and more about what's that word again?
Generational.
Exactly.
That's
a good point.
To be more than just one type of black person.
Exactly.
We have to allow ourselves to be more than just that one man or just that one type of woman who's on TV all the time.
No, and the only point I'm trying to make, and I don't agree with that per se, but the only point I'm trying to make is I think too often we shut down people who we consider archaic in their mentality. But like their fears and their concerns are legitimate
Has a lot
to
of
them. They're like there's something to that. And we just throw it away, oh, you guys are backwards.
I agree that there is a different approach to it. I think there's a different approach to education, which is why platforms need to exist so that people can learn things and try to grow and change in a positive direction. Now, I wanted to get back to sex and gender as to what you said when it comes to like dress and penises, because a dress you wearing a dress doesn't mean you don't have a penis. Your sex and your gender are different. So your sex, the way that you're born, and then the gender, your social construct of how you should perform that sex is completely different. And that's where we get masculinity and femininity. And both can be toxic. But I want to say they are not toxic at their core. Masculinity is not toxic at its core, and neither is femininity, but they can be. When it serves a detriment to both you and society around you, that's when it becomes toxic. So the same way a woman can coddle somebody to death, you know what I'm saying, and like go up, she will kill herself to like make sure everybody else is good. That can be toxic. That's damaging to her, and that's damaging to everybody else. When a man, his only value is attributed to sex and how much he makes and what he drives and all of these other things, that's detrimental to him because his emotional side cannot develop. You completely stunt your emotional growth because that's what you're valued as. And women's emotional value are so high that we stunt our own personal progress and our own personal growth. So that's when things become toxic. These concepts are not toxic at their core, and they can be challenged because they can get better. And as Ami was saying, all it does is opens up new caveats of ways to express yourself. It doesn't mean that because you wouldn't wear a dress that men can't wear a dress. It doesn't mean that because I'm a woman I have to always wear dresses. So I feel like that's where things can get a little convoluted, is because it's like, well, it's this way or no way, and that's just not true. They can both happen at the same time.
So do we feel like that tradition is like more harmful? Like, and thinking about masculinity and femininity in more of a traditional sense. Like, do we think that's?
I think it's more Sodom.
Can I get the question
in
out?
the world of Sodom and Gomorrah, I think it's in a way it can be more harmful. The kids confused, bro.
Okay.
The kids confused because there are some kids that I truly believe
The kids.
that are born and they have an extremely more different hormonal endorphin. I mean, I go to the school pretty often. I mean, I'm talking 2nd, 3rd grade.
Because that's who you are. I mean, it is genetic.
And if in your household, if you're confused and you can't open up, being creative and artistic and being loving of self, you have to be open. But if you think about it, if you're that confused kid and you're in a household and your dad and your mother, because of your family beliefs, can't accept it and can't rock with it.
What do you mean confused?
What are you talking about?
Like I believe there are children that, well, I know from just talking to some of the kids that are in a different body than they should be.
Oh, so you believe that that's real?
I believe that the spirit of that is legit. Confused. I do believe the spirit you can be confused.
I think that the only to combat confusion is education. But when we're only saying you can only be one or the other, that's where confusion comes from. The confusion comes from completely blocking out that child or that person's ability to express themselves the way they see fit because they have to fit into a norm.
I mean, and I'm not bouncing off of that. I'm speaking in the household, but think about what we talked about, the generational understanding of what we've been taught to learn. If the mother and father in that household who love this boy or girl aren't accepting to that, you box this person in and then you create more confusion because as a whole, we're controlled by what the majority of society is doing. The majority of society. So in my confusion and what I was speaking to was, I'm one of those parents that if my son was to grow up and I got to deal with that, I have to deal with that within me. But majority of society now didn't allow my generation to be that free.
That shows growth. It shows growth that you weren't able to do something and now your kid can come up and express themselves how they want. Absolutely. That's not a negative thing, and it shouldn't be looked at as, well, just because I couldn't do it then you can't do it either, because that is like asinine. It's backwards. And there needs to be a new way, of course, to challenge that.
Well, I feel like it's being attacked. Hold on, let me address that. I feel like it's being attacked because we don't have the equal amount of men from those eras where it was not being given in the household mathematically across the board.
That's his thoughts, and we're going to jump over to Mike.
Hey, so in this whole conversation, I don't want to necessarily lose what's considered traditional masculine roles. I mean, like, in my house, I enjoy being a provider. What's considered tradition? You know, me personally, I don't give a fuck what niggas do. You know what I'm saying? Niggas do what they do. You know what I'm saying? Like I never got pissed or got mad or, you know, had a bad thought because somebody else that's a black man wanted to express themselves differently than I did, or that anybody in my past did. That never crossed my plate. I knew who I was. I knew who I always was. That never really affected me. You know what I mean? But I don't really want to lose the fact that, you know, traditional, not toxic, but traditional masculinity is not a loss of art. And a lot of males, all the males in this room exude that traditional masculinity. Like my man Karan said, it took a man to be able to walk out on the carpet with that gown on. You know what I mean? Look, we all men. You a man.
I'm a
If
man.
the police look at you right now, they gonna see a man. If the police look at you, they gonna see a man. If they look at anybody up in here, you a man. You know what I mean? So you know what he meant. You know what he meant. I'm not talking about the women, of course. I'm talking about the men.
So now we
I'm talking about
Oh shoot! What was I gonna say? I think we had said this before, but I think it's important to just allow room for the people who want to raise their kids traditionally or raise them with more freedom. And I think I kind of look at this similar to religion. You can raise your child as a certain religion, but I take comfort in the fact that regardless of how I raise my daughter, she knows that there are all these other options out there. But I am raising her a certain way. And to me, that does not take away from someone else who wants to raise their child Jewish or Catholic or whatever else. We all still have that option. Now, to me, what's problematic is us all pretending like there is only one way and we all got to be on the same thing. And I think, Winston, like I agree with you. I think kinship is important. Kinship among black people is important, among men, women, all that. But I think we have to find balance. We have to allow each other to have some space to do them, and you do you. Nobody is saying you can't do you or that you can't raise your son however you choose. You can, but just like you want that right, you got to let other people have that right also.
And all men aren't manipulative.
And we're gonna jump over.
You've been waiting the whole episode.
And we're gonna jump. And I'm gonna manipulate the room over here to mine.
I think it's perfectly fine to you know, have traditional roles and stuff like that. But what I have a problem with is, specifically with men, is the lack of calling out what some of these things may deem to be toxic. Because, for example, when I used to go to my barbershop and growing up, like, you know, get a little peach fuzz on your chin, the first thing that they assume is like I'm eating cootie cat or something like that.
That's the hood norm.
Completely not it. And like,
that's real.
These are the type of things that I'm saying, like in a barbershop and like just in like men in general. Like I had uncles, you know, who ride past and like see a girl and like want to pinch on their booty and stuff like that. And like when kids are looking at this when they're growing up, it's things like this can be deemed as toxic because like when you're concentrating on a young man on how to conduct themselves with a young lady and they exude these type of behaviors, they seem to be celebrated within like a black male community rather than like called out like, no, you shouldn't be doing this. I'm not saying all, but the majority.
And I want to address that across as the boys club. I mean, because our own president said when he was being
fuck Donald Trump,
legit, but he used, but no. I'm addressing in the sense that it's kind of that boys club, and to say that it doesn't make it right. I mean, because in my own sin, wanting to make sure my son is masculine in a way, we've been in the car and I've addressed it that way because we don't always know how to balance it. It just got here. But it's always been here. When I was a kid, you couldn't address, I'm not gonna say the young man's name, in my high school, and we all knew. We knew from elementary school. We went to the school with
men used to wear skirts.
Women used to not be able to wear pants.
I feel like with this whole masculine, feminine, I think everybody's trying to pin it to male and female. To be masculine does not mean to be male, and to be feminine does not mean to be female. And if we really like take it to art. You can have art, you can look at this sofa right here and say, is that more masculine or is that more feminine?
Traditionally, that would be a masculine.
Thank you. But why? What are you looking? You're looking at color. You're looking at shape. You're looking at the hard. Yeah, exactly. The material. And we're here arguing, and our conversations are getting all mixed up, and we're combating with each other, and we're not even having the same conversation with each other. We're talking about two totally different things. One is man and woman, and whether that's being attacked, and the other is masculine, feminine, and if that's being attacked. So we really have to first understand the question and what we're actually talking about so that we can all be on the same plane and be talking about the same thing.
So we do also need to address that societally, we're not a bubble, and we're not an exclusive bubble. And just because we here are progressive people and can understand that masculine and feminine can exist in the same body doesn't mean that that's how society looks at it. That is the exception, that is not the rule. Society assigns masculine to men and feminine to women. Now, of course, as you get more progressive and you learn more, then you understand both can happen at the same time. The issue that we're talking about at hand and whether these things are toxic is on a societal point of view. We can't look at ourselves like we are the bubble and our existences are the only existences that there are, because we are the exceptions. We are not the rules.
So, my last question, what's the purpose of being able to identify or label masculinity or femininity?
I think it comes down to, like, okay, feminine, I think of like, this is gonna sound weird, but the number 0. Okay. I think of masculine as the number 1. So I think of like the feminine as the void, like Devonna said, of like waiting and receiving, and then masculine as kind of going towards. I mean, like, that's just the way that it is.
But I was with you. I was doing that.
No. I mean, like, you know, but that happens on different levels, not just sexually.
Penis and womb. I mean,
right.
Yes.
All right. It happens on different
No, good morning, good evening.
levels. It happens on different levels. And then women are curved and circular and swooping around. I mean, that's just the way it is. And men are straightforward. That's masculine. I don't mean to say women are this way and men are this way. I mean to say masculine is straightforward, women is curved. That is just the way that it is. It's not who you are, it's not who I am. It's just, that's just the way it is.
Societal, so do you feel like it's necessary?
Yes. I mean, it's not necessary. It is what it is.
I think it's necessary.
I think it used to be.
So I think it's important that as we look at masculinity and femininity, we understand that the way that I see things aren't the only way that they exist. So we know that just because my eyes, I may be colorblind, you may see blue, but I may not understand what blue truly is. And then when I think of how you were taught, you may have been taught blue is only the deepest color of that blue color. But he may think that blue is every color that looks at anywhere near it. So I think it's important as we transition into life that we are able to identify and able to say, you know what, I can respect whatever that is for what it is, regardless of whether it's masculine, whether it's feminine, just to give it the ability to say human and to give it the respect of human. Because ultimately we are human underneath masculine, feminine, boy, girl, alien. Just kidding.
No, they walking around. They talking to people on YouTube. Tell them how to like and subscribe for them alien comments. They need those.
But as always, guys, I want to thank you guys for joining us at the table today. And like, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you think. Peace.
Time to start having this conversation.
And what was the conversation you wanted to have with
this conversation is about authenticity. It's about the acceptance and the honoring of people's humanity, even when you don't get it or understand it. You know, I don't need acceptance. I don't need tolerance. But what we demand is your respect for our humanity. The end.
We already gave up our identity. We did that a long time ago. So for us to try to say, oh, now we want to jump in and run America, that's too late. And all the people, the Cory Booker, the Kamala Harris, yeah, they're representing Democrats. They're not representing black people.
And if you look at where the economy came from when Obama was there, which we all love, I love, to where the economy is now, if you have money and you have a business and you are employing people, you making more money than you made when Obama was in the office. So let's talk about where the power lies.
Painfully obvious that a lot of black men want to be white. We were more angry that we couldn't get away with what white men have been getting away with for hundreds of years than we were that these atrocities had been committed against black women. That's a problem. When you don't want to be black, that's why we keep saying what we ain't ready for. You ain't ready for your daddy? You're not ready for your grandfather?
But I just feel like it's kind of up in the clouds to think that Donald Trump is not going to get reelected. I definitely think he's going to get reelected.
Okay.